When my ex left, I became, well, quite frankly, obsessed with Googling him and his other wife. In fact, my internet sleuthing pretty much dominated my evenings once I got home from work. And it took a while, but eventually I realized what I was really looking for wasn't information about her. It wasn't information about him. What I was really looking for was a respite from the pain. I just wanted to feel okay. And in that time, in that moment, that was one of the only things that I could think of doing. Now, searching up your ex, looking at their Facebook or their Instagram or just Googling them is quite common. It's really hard for us when they are so easily accessible on the internet to walk away, to make that clean cut. But today I just want to give you some things to think about so that if you do decide to keep looking them up, that you're doing it with intention, not that you're doing it mindlessly or like I was, just trying to make yourself feel a little better. So when you think about it, when you search them up, you're basically going to find out one of three things. Maybe they're doing great. Maybe they're in a new relationship and they have a new home and they're taking vacations and everything's wonderful. And you see these pictures. How does that make you feel? Do you feel any better knowing that they're doing well? Or does it make you feel even worse than you were before? Then you have the possible outcome that they're doing worse. Maybe they're miserable. Maybe they're having a horrible time of it and their life is spiraling out of control. And you see this. And maybe for a moment, you feel a little bit of satisfaction. Maybe even a little bit of joy. That, hey, after they hurt you, now they're being hurt. But then, well, you feel kind of dirty because that's not who you are. You're not the kind of person who takes joy in another person's pain. And even more so, you then realize that seeing them hurting, well, it doesn't make you hurt any less. And then there's the third outcome, the one that is probably the most likely. You look them up and you find out that they're human. They have their good moments and their bad, their triumphs and their struggles. And then how do you feel? Well, in some ways, that's the hardest one of all because your brain gets these little intermittent rewards, these little dopamine rushes when you either find out new information that feels important or when you get those little zings of satisfaction that some ill has befallen them. But in any of those cases, where they're doing great, they're doing horribly, or, well, they're just living life, how do you feel after you've looked it up? Probably not any better. Now, most people that are cyberstalking their exes don't really want to do it. It's not an intentional behavior. It's not done mindfully. It tends to be done pretty automatically. It's a compulsive act. And often people want to stop, but they're just not sure how. So I'll give you some ideas. First, this is really a good time to go cold turkey. Unlike an addiction to, say, food, you can live without Facebook. Believe it or not, you can survive without Instagram. Just turn it off. Step away. If you tell yourself, I'm just going to look once a week, that once a week is going to slide into twice a week. And before you know it, you're back to looking every day. This is really a good time for that all or none. While you're there, put it in writing. Commit to yourself that you are not going to look them up and post that places where you can see it. Call in help. Recruit some trusted friends to act as accountability partners for you. Have them check on you. Hey, have you Googled your ex this past week? And then be honest with them. Remember, they only want to help you. Look into the ABCs of your actions. That means the antecedent, what comes before the behavior itself, and then the consequences. So the antecedent, when do you tend to look up your ex? Is it in the evenings? Maybe you're home alone. Maybe you're feeling bored or lonely. Maybe it's after you've had something to drink and your decision making isn't quite at its best. Maybe it's right when you wake up in the morning before you're fully conscious. Whatever it is, pay attention to those patterns. When are you most likely to look them up? And then what can you do to interrupt those patterns? Then look at the behavior itself. Do you tend to look them up on your phone? Is it your work computer? Where are you when this happens? Is it on your daily commute? Again, what can you do to shift that cycle? And then finally, the consequences. How do you feel after you've searched up your ex? Document this. Seriously, write it down. And it's going to be one of those where it's probably going to be quite eye-opening. What I did for a while is I documented how I felt before I looked, how I felt during the looking, and then how I felt after. And what I noticed was before I would feel relatively peaceful. During I would feel this strange energy, again, those little dopamine hits. I got addicted to the drama, to the information. But then afterwards, I would feel anxious. I would feel depressed. I always felt worse afterwards than I did before. Also look into why you're doing this. Is it because your life right now is relatively empty? Are there things that you can do to make your life more interesting, more fulfilling? That's really where you should be putting your energy right now, not into just searching up your ex. Make yourself so happy with your own life that you no longer care what they're doing with theirs. Okay, this one's a little silly, but it really does help. So I myself went cold turkey on looking at my ex the day after the divorce was final. That doesn't mean that I didn't have the urge. But what I did whenever I felt those urges is I vocalized them. Even if I was around other people, I literally would say, I feel like Googling, and I would say his name right now. And I felt really silly saying it. But after saying it, it released some of that energy, and I didn't feel the need to do it anymore. Plus, if there was anybody else around me, it also helped with that accountability piece. Use technology to help you. There's so many apps out there that'll let you block various programs or numbers from your phone. You can make social media go dark if that's your particular weak area. Look into ways that technology can kind of become your willpower for you while you're building up that muscle on your own. And then finally, plan for slip-ups. It's hard to be perfect in this. Sometimes your curiosity is going to get the best of you, or you're going to see something that makes you feel like you need to look them up again, or you gain some piece of information that means that, well, maybe there's a reason for you to look. So plan for those slip-ups. I had one where I actually received a letter in the mail for his old business, and it was addressed to me. And so I became concerned, legitimately concerned, that somehow he was hurting me financially again. And so I had to look. But before I did, I actually wrote down exactly what my goals were from that search. I said, this is what I need to find. And I promised myself that once I had that information, I would turn off the computer. And just having that plan ahead of time made it a whole lot easier. And then forgive yourself for your slip-ups. You know, it's really hard when somebody goes from being in your life every single day to being a virtual stranger. And it can take time to let them go. But I can promise you this, the more that you're looking them up, the harder you're making it on yourself. All you're doing is delaying it. You know, think of the parent trying to drop off the child at daycare. If they string out that goodbye for 30 minutes, the tantrums are worse. Whereas if they just say a loving but quick goodbye and walk away, the tears will come, but they soon fade. This is no different. It's time to close that chapter and focus on your next one.